understand. I almost couldn't believe it. You're right. I don't understand. Because I thought I was married to someone who respected me. Her expression hardened. You always do this. Do what? Make yourself the victim. That sentence hit me like a slap. Not because it was new. Because it was familiar. This was exactly what she did whenever she was caught in a lie. Turn the conversation. Make me defend myself. Make me question my own feelings. But this time, I didn't. I just looked at her. Are you seriously trying to tell me I'm the problem right now? She didn't answer. Jake interrupted. Sarah, you told me you were going to leave. She looked at him. Not now. No. I think now is exactly when we talk about it. That was the moment I realized something important. Jake wasn't the mastermind I imagined. He was still guilty. Still responsible. But he wasn't in control of everything. Apparently, Sarah had been telling him a story too. According to Jake, she had spent months saying she was preparing to leave me. She told him she was waiting for the right moment. She said she needed to protect her finances. She said she needed time because divorce would destroy everything. But there was one problem. She never actually planned anything. No lawyer. No apartment. No separation. Nothing. She had just kept both worlds going. Her marriage with me. And her relationship with him. I felt something inside me go numb. Because suddenly I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. I was dealing with someone who had built an entire second life while keeping me trapped in the first one. Then Sarah said something that completely shocked me. Fine. You want the truth? I looked at her. Yes. She took a deep breath. I wasn't planning to leave you. The honesty of that statement was somehow worse. What? She looked down. I didn't know what I wanted. I laughed bitterly. You didn't know what you wanted, so you lied to everyone? She got defensive. I was confused. No. You were comfortable. She looked angry. But she didn't deny it. Then came another surprise. Sarah admitted that Jake wasn't the only person she'd been hiding things from. She said before Jake came back into her life, she had already been talking to someone else online. Not physically. Not an affair like this. But emotional. Secret conversations. Flirting. Someone she met through social media. My head started spinning. How many secrets are there? She didn't answer. And that silence told me enough. I left. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't give her the dramatic ending she probably expected. I just walked away. Because I suddenly understood something. I had spent weeks trying to find the moment where my marriage broke. But maybe it wasn't one moment. Maybe it was hundreds of small choices. Hundreds of lies. Hundreds of times she chose not to tell me the truth. That night, I stayed at a friend's house. For the first time in days, I slept. Not well. But enough. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls. One from Sarah. One from Ryan. And one from a number I didn't recognize. I called it back. A woman answered. Her voice was shaking. Are you Sarah's husband? I already knew this story wasn't over. But I wasn't prepared for what she was about to tell me. I'm Jake's wife. When she said, I'm Jake's wife, I just sat there. I didn't know what to say. At this point, every time my phone rang, I expected another piece of my life to fall apart. I finally managed to respond. How did you get my number? She hesitated. Ryan gave it to me. Of course. Ryan. The only other person who seemed to understand what it felt like to be blindsided by this. Jake's wife introduced herself as Emily. Her voice sounded exhausted. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just tired. The kind of tired that comes from realizing the person you trusted wasn't who you thought they were. I know about Sarah, she said. I didn't know what to say. So you knew? Not at first. She explained that she had discovered Jake's affair a few days before I did. At first, she thought it was just Sarah. One person. One mistake. Then she found messages. Lots of messages. And she realized Jake had been lying to everyone. Including the person he was cheating with. That part surprised me. Even Sarah wasn't the only one being manipulated. Emily told me something that made my entire view of Jake change. He wasn't planning to leave me. I stayed quiet. He told Sarah he was. My jaw tightened. Of course he did. The same story. Different person. Same promises. Emily said Jake had been telling her that his marriage was going through a difficult phase. But he never said he wanted a divorce. He wanted things to stay exactly how they were. A wife at home. A secret relationship on the side. No consequences. Then Emily sent me something. A folder. Inside were screenshots, photos, and messages. I opened the first few. My heart sank. Because there were conversations between Jake and Sarah that I had never seen. Not just romantic messages. Plans. They had talked about places they wanted to visit. Things they wanted to do together. A future. A fake future. But then I noticed something strange. The dates. Some of the messages were from times when Sarah had told me she was working late. One was from our anniversary week. I remember that week clearly. She had told me she was overwhelmed at work. She apologized because she was too stressed to celebrate properly. I spent that night ordering takeout and trying to cheer her up. Meanwhile, she was messaging Jake. That realization hurt in a way I wasn't prepared for. It wasn't just that she cheated. It was that she took moments that mattered to me and turned them into something meaningless. Or at least that's how it felt. I called Ryan after reading everything. He answered immediately. She told you too? Yeah. There was a pause. Then he said. We need to talk. I met Ryan that evening. Both of us were exhausted. Both of us were angry. But strangely, neither of us felt like we were competing. We were just two people trying to understand how we ended up here. Then Ryan said something that caught me off guard. I think Jake has done this before. I looked at him. What? Not just with us. He showed me something he found. An old social media account. Different name. Different profile picture. But the same person. Same patterns. Same excuses. Different women. My stomach dropped. Jake wasn't just someone who made one terrible choice. He had a history. And then came the strangest part. Sarah called me while I was sitting with Ryan. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Her voice was quiet. Can we talk? About what? A pause. Then she said. I found something out about Jake. I waited. He lied to me too. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because after everything, I couldn't believe she was only now realizing it. What did you find? Her answer made me sit up. He's been talking to another woman. I looked at Ryan. He looked back at me. And we both knew. The situation had just become even bigger. I didn't know whether to laugh or be angry when Sarah told me. He's been talking to another woman. For months, I had imagined Jake as the person who took my wife away. The villain in the story. And he was. But now I was realizing something else. He wasn't some great love that destroyed my marriage. He was just another person making selfish choices. The difference was that I had almost lost everything because of him. How did you find out? I asked. Sarah sounded embarrassed. I saw messages. I almost couldn't believe it. The irony was unbelievable. She had spent months hiding messages from me. Now she was the one discovering hidden messages. What kind of messages? She went quiet. Sarah. They were from another woman. Another affair? I don't know. That answer bothered me. Because after everything, she still couldn't say things clearly. She still left room for excuses. She told me she had confronted Jake after finding the messages. Apparently, he didn't react the way she expected. He didn't apologize. He didn't panic. He didn't beg her to stay. He just got angry. He told her she was overreacting. The same thing she had done to me. That detail stuck with me. Because for the first time, Sarah was experiencing what I had experienced. Being lied to. Being dismissed. Being made to feel unreasonable. I asked her something I probably shouldn't have. How does it feel? Silence. What? Knowing exactly what it feels like now. She didn't answer. Then she quietly said. I deserve that. I wasn't expecting that. Not from her. Not after weeks of anger and denial. But I wasn't ready to forgive her either. A moment of regret doesn't erase months of choices. Later that day, I met Ryan again. We talked about what to do next. Not revenge. Not some dramatic plan. Just figuring out how to move forward. Because the truth was, both of us were exhausted. We had spent so much time trying to understand the people who hurt us that we forgot to think about ourselves. Ryan told me something that stayed with me. We keep asking why they did this. Maybe we need to start asking what we do now. He was right. For the first time since discovering everything, I stopped thinking about Jake. I stopped thinking about proving how bad he was. I started thinking about my own life. My own future. My own choices. That night, Sarah came to my apartment. I almost didn't open the door. But I did. She looked different. Not completely changed. I didn't believe people transform overnight. But different. She wasn't angry. She wasn't defensive. She just looked tired. I want to talk. I let her in. She sat across from me. And for once, she didn't blame me. She didn't say I pushed her away. She didn't say the marriage made her do it. She just admitted. I hurt you. It was the first real apology I had heard. But then she said something that confused me. I don't know if I can fix this. I stared at her. Neither do I. And that was the first honest conversation we had in months. Not a fight. Not accusations. Just two people sitting with the damage. Then she reached into her bag. She pulled out an envelope. I found this in Jake's car. My stomach tightened. What is it? She looked nervous. I think you need to see it. I opened the envelope. Inside was a printed document. And after reading the first few lines, I realized Jake wasn't just cheating. He had been hiding something much bigger. I stared at the document in my hands. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It wasn't a love letter. It wasn't another conversation. It was paperwork. Actual paperwork. And the more I read, the more confused I became. It was related to money. Specifically, Money Jake had been moving around without his wife's knowledge. I looked at Sarah. What is this? She looked uncomfortable. I don't know everything. I just know I found it in his car. That sentence alone raised 100 questions. Why was she in his car? Why was she looking through his things? Why was this the first time she was telling me? But before I could ask, she answered the question I hadn't said out loud. I know how it sounds. I didn't respond. Because honestly, I didn't know what to think anymore. The entire situation was built on secrets. Everyone had been hiding something from someone. Sarah explained that after discovering Jake had been talking to another woman, she started questioning everything he had told her. She said she went through his things because she didn't trust him anymore. The irony wasn't lost on me. The person who spent months telling me I was paranoid was now doing exactly what I had done. Searching for the truth. She said she found documents showing Jake had been lying about his financial situation. He had told her he was struggling because his marriage was complicated. He had told her he couldn't leave because of money. But the paperwork showed something different. He wasn't trapped. He wasn't helpless. He was making choices. Calculated ones. Ryan and Emily joined us later that night. At this point, it felt surreal. For strangers connected by the same person's lies. We sat around my kitchen table looking through everything. And that's when Emily noticed something. Wait. Everyone looked at her. She pointed at one of the documents. This isn't the only account. What do you mean? She explained that Jake had multiple accounts. Different names. Different transactions. It looked like he had been moving money around. I wasn't an expert, so I didn't know exactly what it meant. But I knew one thing. This was bigger than cheating. Much bigger. Then another unexpected thing happened. Jake called. Not Sarah. Me. I almost didn't answer. But I did. The first thing he said was, "You need to stop digging." That immediately made me angry. Excuse me? You don't know what you're getting involved in. I looked at the documents on the table. Funny. I was about to say the same thing to you. There was silence. Then his voice changed. Less confident. More nervous. I think we both need to be careful. That word bothered me. Careful. Like this was some business problem. Not people's lives. Not broken relationships. Not trust. I asked him a simple question. Did you ever actually love Sarah? He didn't answer immediately. And that pause told me everything. Finally he said. I cared about her. Not loved. Cared. Even after everything, he couldn't say it. After the call ended, Sarah looked devastated. But I didn't know if it was because she finally saw Jake clearly. Or because she realized she had risked our marriage for someone who never intended to choose her. That night, I made a decision. Not about divorce. Not about forgiveness. Something simpler. I decided I was done chasing answers from people who had spent months hiding the truth. I needed to focus on myself. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. Not because I had decided to leave. Not yet. But because I needed to understand my options. And then, while I was waiting for my appointment, I received a message from an unknown number. One sentence. That's all it said. But it changed everything. Your wife isn't telling you the whole truth. I stared at the message for a long time. Your wife isn't telling you the whole truth. At this point, those words should not have surprised me. But somehow they still did. Because no matter how many secrets I uncovered, some part of me was still hoping we had finally reached the end. I replied. Who is this? The response came almost immediately. Someone who knows Sarah better than you think. That sentence made my stomach drop. I called the number. No answer. I texted again. Nothing. I was about to block it when another message appeared. Ask her about the hotel. The hotel. 2 words. That's all. But Sarah's reaction when I mentioned it later told me everything. I didn't call her right away. I waited. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to have a real conversation instead of another argument. That evening, she came over. She looked nervous. Not like before. Different. Like she already knew something was coming. I made coffee. We sat at the table. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then I asked, "What happened at the hotel?" The change in her face was immediate. Her eyes moved away. Her hands tightened around the cup. And I knew. There was something. Who told you that? I almost laughed. Because once again, she wasn't denying it. She was asking how I found out. Sarah. She closed her eyes. I was going to tell you. I shook my head. You always say that. And this time she didn't argue. She just looked tired. She admitted there was one night she hadn't told me about. A night she originally claimed she spent at a friend's house. It was actually a night she met Jake at a hotel. I felt numb. Not angry. Not even shocked. Just empty. Because by then, I had heard so many versions of the truth that another confession almost felt expected. Was that the first time? She nodded. Yes. First time you met him there? Yes. I looked at her. And you still stayed with me after that? She started crying. I was scared. I asked. Scared of what? She took a long pause. Losing everything. There it was again. The same phrase. Not losing me. Not hurting me. Losing everything. The house. The lifestyle. The stability. The image of having a perfect marriage. That hurt more than I expected. Because I realized she wasn't just afraid of losing her husband. She was afraid of losing the life attached to her husband. Then she said something unexpected. I know I don't deserve another chance. I didn't answer. Because I honestly didn't know if I believed that. People can make terrible choices and still be human. But understanding someone doesn't mean you have to accept what they did. That night, we talked for hours. Really talked. She admitted things she had avoided for months. She admitted she liked the attention. She liked feeling wanted. She liked escaping from problems instead of facing them. None of it excused what happened. But for the first time, I felt like I was talking to the real person instead of someone defending a lie. The next morning, I met with the lawyer. I walked in thinking I was there to prepare for divorce. But after talking through everything, I realized something. I wasn't ready to make that decision yet. Not because I had forgotten. Not because everything was fixed. But because I wanted to make my choice based on what I wanted, not just based on anger. When I left the office, I had another message waiting. This time from Ryan. You need to see this before you decide anything about Sarah. Attached was a screenshot. A conversation between Jake and someone else. Someone we hadn't heard about before. And the first line made my blood run cold. She still thinks she has a chance with me. I opened the screenshot expecting another surprise. At this point, I should have been numb. I wasn't. Somehow, every new piece of information still found a way to hurt. The conversation was between Jake and another woman. Not Sarah. Not Emily. Someone else. The woman's name was Rachel. And according to the messages, she had known Jake for almost a year. A year. I read the conversation over and over. The worst part wasn't even the cheating. I was starting to understand that Jake was exactly who everyone had slowly discovered him to be. The worst part was what he said about Sarah. She still thinks she has a chance with me. Sarah. The person who risked her marriage for him. The person who defended him. The person who lied to me over and over. Even she was just another option to him. I called Ryan immediately. Where did you get this? Emily found it through someone who knows Rachel. I sat there quietly. Then Ryan said something that stayed with me. Do you realize what's happening? What? We've spent all this time trying to figure out why they did this. He paused. But maybe the bigger question is why we keep letting their choices control our lives. That hit me. Because he was right. For weeks, my entire world had revolved around the people who hurt me. Their lies. Their excuses. Their decisions. I had forgotten that I still had choices too. That evening, I met Sarah one more time. I didn't show up angry. I didn't want another fight. I just wanted honesty. I showed her the screenshot. She read it. Her expression changed. At first, confusion. Then disbelief. Then something that looked like pain. He knew about Rachel? I looked at her. What do you mean? She looked away. And once again, there was another secret. Sarah. She took a deep breath. I suspected. I couldn't believe it. You suspected and you still stayed? She started crying. I thought he would choose me. That sentence explained more than she probably realized. Not love. Not trust. A competition. She had been fighting to be chosen by someone who had been lying to her from the beginning. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel like saying, I told you so. I just felt sad. Because for a moment, I saw the person I married. A person who had made terrible decisions. A person who was now realizing the fantasy she chased wasn't real. But I also saw something else. The damage she caused. The pain she created. And I knew I couldn't pretend it didn't matter just because she was hurting too. She asked me a question that I wasn't ready to answer. Do you still love me? I sat there for a long time. Because the honest answer was complicated. Yes. I loved the person I thought she was. I loved the years we shared. I loved the memories. But I didn't know if I loved the person sitting in front of me anymore. Finally, I said. I don't know. And that was the first truly honest answer either of us had given in a long time. A few days later, Sarah moved back home temporarily. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. We agreed on rules. No more secrets. No contact with Jake. Full honesty. And individual counseling. I knew trust wasn't going to magically return. Maybe it never would. But I wanted to see if there was anything left worth saving. Then, 2 weeks later, something happened that almost destroyed that decision. I came home early from work. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked into the living room. And Sarah was sitting there with someone. Someone I never expected to see again. Jake. I don't think I've ever felt anger arrive that quickly. 1 second I was walking into my house, thinking maybe, just maybe, we were finally moving in the right direction. The next second I saw Jake sitting on my couch. In my home. The same home where my marriage had almost collapsed. I just stood there. I didn't even say anything at first. Jake looked uncomfortable. Sarah immediately stood up. Wait, let me explain. Those words. Those exact words. I had heard them too many times. I put my bag down. Explain what? She looked panicked. It isn't what you think. I almost laughed. Because that was the same sentence people say when it is exactly what you think. Jake stood up. I came here because we needed to talk. I looked at him. No. You needed to talk. I needed peace. The room went silent. Sarah stepped between us. He came because he wanted to apologize. I stared at her. You invited him here? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I felt something break inside me. Not because I thought she was secretly getting back with him. Not even because Jake was there. Because after everything we had talked about, after everything we had agreed on, she still made a decision without telling me. Another secret. Another surprise. Another moment where I found out the truth by accident. I thought we agreed on no contact. Sarah looked down. I know. Then why is he here? Jake finally spoke. I asked her to meet because I wanted to admit what I did. I looked at him. Admit what? That you lied? We already know. He didn't argue. For once, he looked genuinely ashamed. I hurt a lot of people. I nodded. Yes, you did. Then something unexpected happened. Jake looked at Sarah. Not me. Her. And said. I never planned a future with you. Sarah froze. I watched the words hit her. Even though she already knew. Even though she had seen the evidence. Hearing it directly from him was different. You told me you loved me, she whispered. Jake looked away. I cared about you. Again. That same phrase. Cared. Not loved. Not chose. Cared. Sarah sat down. And for the first time since this entire disaster started, I saw her completely break. Not angry. Not defensive. Just devastated. Jake left a few minutes later. I didn't stop him. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. When the door closed, the house went quiet. Sarah and I sat there for a long time. Finally, she spoke. I understand if you leave. I looked at her. A few months ago, that sentence would have destroyed me. But now? I just felt tired. I don't know what I'm going to do. She nodded. I know. And that was the first time she accepted that she couldn't control the outcome. For weeks, she had tried to control the story. Who knew? What they knew. When they knew. But now there was nothing left to manage. Only consequences. That night, I slept in the bedroom for the first time in weeks. Not because everything was okay. It wasn't. But because I finally stopped making decisions out of pure pain. The next morning, I made my choice. Not a rushed choice. Not an emotional one. A real one. I told Sarah I wanted a separation. Not necessarily the end. But space. Time. A chance for both of us to figure out who we were outside of this disaster. She cried. But she didn't fight me. And honestly, that was the first sign that maybe she was finally understanding. The last thing I expected happened 3 days later. I received a message from Emily. Just one sentence. I think you should know what happened after Jake left your house. I stared at Emily's message for a few minutes before opening it. At that point, I wasn't sure I wanted more information. For months, I had been chasing the truth. And every time I found it, it hurt. But something had changed. I wasn't looking for answers anymore because I needed to fix the past. I was looking because I needed to understand how to move forward. Emily's message was about Jake. She told me that after leaving my house, he finally had nowhere left to hide. Sarah was done. Emily was done. Rachel apparently stopped responding to him after she learned the full story. For the first time, he had to face the consequences of his own choices. And strangely enough, I didn't feel happy about it. A few months earlier, I thought seeing him lose everything would make me feel better. It didn't. The truth was, nothing he lost could give me back what I lost. The trust. The memories. The version of my marriage I thought I had. That was something I had to deal with myself. As for Sarah and me, we stayed separated. We didn't immediately file for divorce. We didn't magically fix everything either. We went to counseling separately. Not because I promised her we would get back together. Not because I owed her another chance. But because after 6 years together, I wanted to make decisions with a clear mind. I wanted to understand whether there was anything real left. The biggest change was that Sarah finally stopped trying to control my reaction. She stopped saying things like, "You're overreacting. You're making this worse. You need to move on." Instead, she started accepting that healing wasn't something she could demand from me. Some days were better. Some days were terrible. There were moments where I missed her. There were moments where I couldn't understand how I could miss someone who hurt me so much. But I learned something important. Love doesn't disappear just because someone hurts you. And forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. After everything, I decided that I would eventually divorce her. Not because I hated her. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I realized I couldn't rebuild a marriage with someone while constantly wondering which version of the truth I was getting. I needed a fresh start. Sarah took it better than I expected. She cried. She apologized. But she didn't fight the decision. And honestly, that mattered. Because for once, she respected a boundary I set. It's been almost a year now. I don't wake up angry anymore. I don't check my phone wondering what new disaster is waiting. I don't replay every conversation trying to find the exact moment everything went wrong. I still have bad days. I'm still healing. But I'm okay. If there's anything I learned from this mess, it's this. Pay attention when someone's actions don't match their words. Small lies don't always stay small. And trust isn't something someone gets to demand after breaking it. You can love someone and still choose yourself. You can understand why someone hurt you and still decide you deserve better. For anyone reading this who suspects something is wrong in their relationship, don't ignore your instincts. Don't let someone convince you that you're crazy for asking questions. But also don't let betrayal turn you into someone you don't recognize. The goal isn't revenge. The goal is getting your life back. Thanks for reading.